Welcome back to the Marketing MadMen. Trip Job and Nick Constantino here with Jed Strange of Gather Grills.
Still love the name, by the way.
Yeah.
Still love the name.
I know.
Still love the name. I think people might have just bought it because of the name. They're like, this guy's strange. I want in.
Well, it's not Strange Grills, though. It's Gather Grills.
Yeah, no one's going to buy a Strange Grill.
Oh, right.
They might like the name and they think he's strange, but no one's going to buy something that says Strange Grill. If I called this company Strange Radio, oh shit, there might be something there. Flounder, beep that.
Easy now. The farm is called Strange Farms.
There you go. That I like. I wonder what you're selling on there, though. Then my mind wanders other places, things that are being sold on that farm.
So you start going, you get friends and family funds, and then now you've got to go to investors, and you've Jed Strange going to investors. So what is that process? How did you think about really forming and saying, hey, this is going to be a business? And what were some of your key learnings through that process of taking it from the seed money to really going hard at this as a new business?
Yeah, so we've been through it once with the business that my dad started, and we learned a lot. I mean, if you've never been through it and don't have anybody holding your hand, it's the biggest way you're going to learn is just make mistakes, and hopefully you got enough money to get you through all the mistakes. So we made those mistakes, and I wasn't going to make those again. So one of the mistakes we made was we're just going to carry this thing ourselves without getting people involved from an investor standpoint and an advice standpoint, and we just burned through a lot more money than we would have. So getting those guys involved, and honestly,
giving up some ownership. That's one of the reasons a lot of people won't do it. They don't want to give up what it's going to take, which might be 25 to 50%.
Yeah, I think that. Thank goodness that model's changing. Right. Between ESOPs and employee sponsorship, everyone's understanding that the psychology of an employee is different nowadays. And because if you look how often people bounce around, giving them stake in the game just makes them work so much harder towards an end goal. Yeah. Especially when that end goal is clear in mind. You have a product. The end goal is to have people have the product. It's a very tangible thing, and if that happens, we all make money. Makes it a little bit easier. So I'm glad to see that's changing.
Yeah. So the first investment tranche we got was 20. I gave up 20%. But to think about, no, I'd rather have 100%, not have that money, and not have those 10 people helping me, telling their friends, buying grills for their clients.
It almost becomes a board of directors. I mean, you almost have a board that you have to check your own self against too.
Yeah, and it's just a no-brainer for me to want to have more support. So we did that. But another thing we did, which if I was talking to people who are starting businesses, you can raise money lots of ways. The best way to raise money is sell product. That's the best way, because you're selling product and you're not having to give up anything. Debt's another option, but debt can shackle you, because you have all these obligations, and it could
spiral down. The interest rate goes up. You're paying at a higher rate.
Super stressful.
We know that. Everyone knows that game. It's happening every day. You see a business go under now. That's it. It's the shackles of debt.
But we did a Kickstarter campaign, which you guys might be familiar. It's essentially crowdfunding. So you throw it out there to the Kickstarter world and pretty much say, "Will y'all support it? You're not investing a lot of money in terms of equity, but will you pre-buy a grill so we can deliver it 6 months later?"
Yep.
So the first one we did failed, and the second one we did was successful.
Failed? Why? Okay. What does your gut say why it failed?
Because I didn't know anything about Kickstarter. And what I've learned is if you hop into Kickstarter without having any pre-hype, like when it goes live, if you don't get a lot of stuff happening,
it's momentum based.
It's algorithm based. Yeah. And I thought algorithm based meant I get my friends and hey, you guys go on there and buy a hat the day it goes on. But now we're about to do another Kickstarter for the mini version, which is going to be $800 to $1,800. And we are going to have probably 1,000 people who are already ready to punch the button before the Kickstarter goes on. So I just didn't know.
Those algorithms.
You got to get them prepped. You got to get people ready before.
Man. Like when you go on LinkedIn, it is gauging your first 6 minutes and how many people engage and how quickly people share immediately. YouTube videos. If you see it at 6, there's no way it's going to get to 10,000. Yeah. But if you see it at 800 quickly, it probably has a chance to do it. And what the platforms are trying to do is delineate if you're of value to the platform. Because ultimately, as much as Kickstarter is a moneymaker, if there's 1 million people that go to it, Kickstarter makes ad revenue of all the people that go to it. They have all that data. So they are just vetting out whether this thing is of value to it. And again, like you said, wisely, because now that's the same thing for YouTube, right? When you make a video, if your Kickstarter campaign also follows a YouTube video, you get 1,000 people who are going to buy it, but 1,000 people are going to also watch the YouTube video, then all of a sudden this stuff spreads virally. Now, it's gimmicky because that doesn't mean you have long-term brand value, but for what you're trying to do for a video or a social media post, the game works. And it's pretty easy once you figure it out how to do it.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's a good advice for people because what people try to do is they think, oh, this idea is so good. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have the best podcast in the world. If you're not playing the SEO game, no one's looking. It could be the most appealing video. If you don't play the game right, no one's looking at it. So I think that's what I'm glad you found it out early, because people just make that same mistake over and over again because they think the quality of the content matters. And unfortunately, in this world, it doesn't always work that way.
Yeah. It's the psychology of, if you go on Amazon to buy something, you're going to have to really want it, really like it if you're going to buy something that already doesn't have a lot of reviews, because you don't want to be the first person to get it and it's, obviously bad. So it's the same type of thing here. Is if it's ranking up and a lot of other people are already pushing it, it's like, well, there must be something here. And we had a video that just went to 7.2 million views, and it caught a wave. This random kind of influencer traded us a grill for some promotion, and it worked.
Yeah, that's great. I'm curious. So one of the things I understand about Kickstarter is what people do wrong is they get the timeline wrong, and they do a Kickstarter campaign, but they don't make their deadline of getting the product out, and then it all goes down very quickly because your credibility is gone.
You can't deliver.
What did you do to ensure that you had the product, that it was going to be made and was going to be ready to go by the time that you said it was going to?
On the first run, very little. We were the problem child on the first one because we were just trying to get any traction we could. So it wasn't that we were throwing out things that we didn't think we could do, but we didn't know what we could do. We didn't know if we were going to sell 10 grills or 500 grills. So we kind of said, okay, we threw a timeline out there, and we were able to hit it because we didn't have a huge funding. But if it had blown up, we would have had to send out something, say, hey, we're sorry, demand was a whole lot more than we thought. And we probably would have upset some people because we would have gone from like a 4-month delivery to like a 12-month delivery.
Yeah, that's a huge deal. Yeah. A year later is just, you're without something, the appeal's gone in a couple months. 6 months, someone can wait, there's hype. Once you get past that point.
Yeah, you're in a product category that sometimes there can be, if it's an extra couple weeks, it's fine, but you're also in a category that there's a little bit of seasonality to it. I think some of what you're doing is taking the seasonality away, but we also know those products that couldn't deliver and then the season's gone and it's 8 months till you need them again, and that's when you're dead.
And some of these Kickstarter campaigns, they never get off the ground and people lose their money. And that's a risk you have to sign when you're buying something from Kickstarter. So if it's a brand new company like ours, we have no track record. Anybody buying our product it's a risk. Whereas now we're coming out with a new product with track record, a website, and we've got all the stuff that people are like, okay, these guys, they've been around for 3.5 years, so if they're coming out with something new, the chances of them actually delivering on that with quality and timing are so much better. So we think this next run is going to be really good.
Yeah, you're capitalizing on hype that's already there versus a lot of times what they say is they're going to give you a huge discount to buy it the first time. They're willing to take it at cost or a little bit of a loss to build the hype.
Yeah.
So, but now you're going in with the traction. So you have that already built into it. And honestly, most people who use it, their brain probably goes to, man, it'd be cool if I had a smaller one.
Yep.
Right? Just like when you buy the little big green egg, all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, now I need the bigger one. Right? And the solo stove, wait, it'd be really nice to have this little one out here. So it's the next logical progression.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about the little one, because in my head I think easy to bring to tailgates. I think that's where my mind goes. Talk about what do you think the application of the little one would be and how it's going to be different than the bigger products.
Yeah, good question. So the first fire pit we had, that I wasn't trying to build a grill, I wanted the biggest fire pit they made, which I bought a 48-inch 350-pound fire pit. It's not meant to be not meant to be moved.
Not meant for every size house.
No, and it's not meant to be turned into a grill, which we did. Right. But after we turned it into it, we built a smaller one, and then we built a smaller one, and now we're about to build the smallest one because the average person is not cooking for 10, 20 people. The average person is cooking for their family.
Yeah.
And also the average person, if they're going to cook everything on that grill, to manage that much food, you need to know what you're doing or be a chef. So coming out with this small grill, it's going to have all the functionality, the table, the smoker, the grill, the griddle, and the fire pit feature, but it's going to be 18 inches, which is kind of your standard big green egg Komodo type of size. Just going to be
4 to 6 people.
4 to 6 people. Yep, it'll have 5 seats at it. We're excited about it. We think a lot more people are going to gravitate to that. And like you said, the people who have the big one, they will start thinking of applications like, I'm not going to take this to a college football game, or I'm not going to take it on a camping trip. I need a small one now. And the people who get the small one, hopefully they'll like it enough to where they're like, man, the only issue I've got with my small grill is I wish I had a bigger one. So
yeah, I wonder how much. So one of the things has really content marketing and education, and because like you said, like if you buy this and you use it once and it's too technically complicated and you're not going to use it again, that's not a good thing. Right. Those aren't good reviews. So how much of your job and your marketing, if you will, is education, is showing demos of how this works and the different applications. I imagine when you talk celebrity chefs, that's where their heads go. It's like, man, I can do a whole kind of dinner that you would require multiple things, cooking inside, outside, slow cooker, but I can do it all here now. How much is education a part of all this?
So I watch Shark Tank a lot. I don't know if you guys do, but they talk about customer acquisition cost. Yep. And essentially, if you've got a wonderful idea, but it takes you having to explain it for an hour to get people to get it, they're like, it doesn't matter if it's a wonderful idea, it's going to cost too much to get the customer. Yep. So we're working through that right now. Is if the videos can be engaging enough that people want to watch them. Nobody wants to, no, especially men, not to stereotype, but we typically don't want to watch instructional videos or read manuals, right? So unless it's got some sizzle to it, most guys aren't going to take the time to watch it. So we believe with the right type of video that will educate and entertain at the same time. So
I also think you're going after somebody, if you're going to buy this, you know what it entails, right? There's a difference between pulling out an old Weber red grill and going in an egg. And that's why I tell people, it's funny, it's similar to what I say about golf. Like, don't buy good clubs to start. Start with atrocious clubs, because when it's going to click one day when you buy real clubs, you're like, oh my goodness, this actually helped. People do that. They hit one good golf ball and they're like, we need $6,000 clubs. Right. This is it. So start, if you're going through the process and you're grilling and you're learning how these things work, indirect heat, smoking, then this is a logical progression. Then it makes more sense. You don't need as much education. You can wing it and learn on the fly. And maybe you don't use all the functionality, right? The griddle's pretty easy to use. I mean, you don't take the rocket science to figure out how to use a griddle to make something. So, okay, that makes sense. What else? I think one of the things, like marketing-wise, it's a niche product. I mean niche because it's expensive and it starts with a person that can afford it. You need to have a big backyard space. You need to have practical application. Talk about, I know you're not at the let's mass market this yet, but talk about what your vision is and some of the things you think marketing-wise will really help.
So every business like ours would love to sell direct because you cut out that, essentially when you're selling through dealers and distributors.
Even Amazon, anyone, 10%, 20% off the bat, no matter what, if you're lucky.
More than that. They're going to take the majority of your profit. But if they bring the volume, then you're willing to give it up. But if you can get volume and profit, that's obviously the greatest. So our goal is to create just really good content, continue to push it out, hope it catches some viral nature to it. We're going to sign up an influencer or two that clearly have more street credit than I do on a video. And that's one of the ways that we're going to do it. We have it. We've been talking to the big box, Sam's, Costco, some of the big ones, because sometimes you get it out, particularly your entry level product, you get it out to those and they see it there and then they go to your website.
Sure.
So we're going to hit it both ways. Sure. I mean, we've applied to Shark Tank. We're trying to do that. We're essentially trying to any opportunity that opens itself.
So you got a couple of things. One, you got the go to market. So ideally, as you said, you want to be direct to consumer, but you're thinking about ways that might expand that. Whether it's specialty stores or the big guys. The next piece is, do you want to just play in, let's just call it the fire pit grill category, or are you looking to expand the product line? Are you looking to expand into consumables, accessories? I mean, those are things people have to think about. And, depending on what businesses do, sometimes I've seen them where you expand too quickly.
Yeah, I was going to say, can I put my gut in there?
Well, yeah, no, that's why I want to see what you're trying to approach. Is this, hey, this is what we do. We may have different sizes, but this is what we do and do well. Or are we thinking, a broader scope?
First of all, I'm walking into the Braves world here, which I'm a big Braves fan. You guys are pretty smart I mean, I'm really surprised. I feel like I'm sitting with
this
some
guy look at us and be like, who are these?
I know, no offense.
I mean, it's only 160 episodes in of doing this. No offense taken.
When I walk in somewhere and I have to pull on a baseball bat to get in, I'm not expecting these level of questions, but great questions. So to answer your question, started with the grill, because originally we were like, we're going to start with grill and charcoal and we're going to mail order food, and we didn't do it just because we didn't have the bandwidth to do it.
Yep.
So we started with the grill. The grill is now stable. We're not changing the design. I'm not going in there tweaking it. So the next couple of things that we did is a prep table, because everybody who's using this grill is going to need to put stuff behind. So you could use a card table.
Chopping vegetables, everything, yeah.
And then when you're taking stuff off the grill, like the spark screen or the hood, if you're not smoking, or you pull everything out to be a fire pit, it's got to go somewhere, particularly if it's hot. So the prep table, you can slide it in there. It's got dividers in it. It's almost like a filing cabinet or a tackle box for the grill. So we've got that.
Functional things, though.
Functional things.
Yeah, but that ties into your direct-to-consumer model, because companies that have done what you're looking at doing well, they get people hooked on the key item, and then they add those accessories and potentially consumables, but they add it that tie into the product of, oh, I'm already a loyalist. Yeah, I need a prep table. I don't have a prep table. Boy, this makes sense. Right.
I think those are supporting mechanisms of the core product. I think when you run into problems, and usually you see the demise of these companies, is when they start going ancillary. Like they bring in the other lines. Like you're making salt and you're making rubs. And I understand the thought behind it. But usually what happens is your sales are down for 2-3 quarters in a row. And you're like, oh my God, we have to make money. You knee jerk, you do it wrong. Right. I mean, there's a certain person comes to mind who you've had on this show before, who their restaurant is completely going down. And they're like, let's put our product in supermarkets. And by the name of the thing, it's not going to catch the way they think it's going to, but it almost seems like a last desperate plea, right? There's these companies who they lose the restaurants, so they try to get a brand out there. They go mass consumer. They probably make no margins, or they sell the brand to somebody else. So I think that's
being true to what you are.
A fine line. They have to be
You understand your go-to-market strategy, your product strategy. Then eventually you can get into your marketing strategy. But if you don't understand those first two, your marketing strategy is going to be all over the board.
Yeah, we had to get the foundation profitable and the quality high, and people associate when they're buying a Gather Grill, they're going to get a really, really high-end product. It's going to be a little bit more on the expensive side. But really, the Mini is going to be right in line with every other grill. It's going to start at $899. So you get under that $1,000 mark, and normal, just everyday people are at least looking at it at that point.
Sure. And you're opening up the entryway, right? You're getting them into the ecosystem, right? That's why Mercedes sells a crappy little car, because they want you to get used to buying Mercedes, so you eventually buy the $100,000 car. I mean, they're awful. The entry-level Mercedes is one of the worst automobiles on the road. It doesn't even feel. It's got like 180 horsepower. You're driving around in it, but you do. But
you got the logo.
You got the logo, and then eventually, hopefully, you go up the line. So that's what you have it for.
And we've spoken to charcoal. Yesterday, we were online with a charcoal company. We were speaking with a butcher shop that's getting into mail order. And we don't want to do mail order. You can order anything from the grocery store. You can get it at gathergrills.com.
Yeah, I thought we were talking about a different kind of mail order. I thought that's how Tripp found his third wife, was straight from Russia. So I thought we were talking about a different kind of mail order.
We don't
Ukraine, not Russia.
Smart man. Deep in democracy.
We want to get some grills into the Ukraine, so if you can help us, that'd be great. But we want to get into that, but we want to get into it very simply. Like, we might just do meat, and if we do it, we're not gonna go open a slaughterhouse. We're gonna partner with somebody who's doing it. We're just latching on to what they're doing.
But again, I that ancillary, because when you're talking about spending $5,000 on a grill and lifestyle, then the quality meat you use matters. Not the cut of meat. This is a mistake people always make. I'm not saying the cut. I am saying the quality. There are really good steaks that are not as expensive as the best steaks, but if you get a good quality hanger steak, there's not many better things in life than a good quality hanging steak. So that's what I mean.
And I will add, as you think about it, because you're thinking about your whole business plan, it is one thing to handle the customer service side of things for hard goods that you're doing now. When you start to get into consumables, the customer service on a go to direct to consumer model is night and day different. And that's something I think a lot of people don't realize.
Good point.
If they've never been in that consumable market, the customer experience, I mean, it is 50 times the pace.
And you're right, but one of the things that gets really hard when you talk about that is user error, right? You can make the best customer experience. If these morons don't know how to use it or they burn themselves, then there's only so much that's in your control.
Right, but what's your approach going to be? Am I going to, if someone...
Well, they can't use the Nick approach, because I'd write back and be like, you're a dummy, don't burn yourself. Or how about you learn how to use it, you moron. Or how about you put your blinker on when you change lanes, as opposed to...
But with consumables, that's the problem with the consumables. You have to decide, am I going to be a Nordstrom's and just accept everything back? Am I going to be a more hard line and say...
And that's a really hard question to answer.
It's totally different than how you probably approach the customer service experience on your grills.
Right.
And I'm not saying don't do it. It's just you need to prepare, and it will be night and day different than with the hard goods.
And that is all part of the marketing. And I've just decided what we're going to do for segment 3. Yeah. And segment 3, we're going to give little tips and tidbits like that about marketing, because that's really important, right? And how you market. One of the big things, you say Nordstrom, they did great at that. They took everything back. Then they made Nordstrom Rack. Everyone's like, why the hell would I shop at Nordstrom if this is half the price right here? So I think, and that's how you market it. And it's hard to delineate those things. So I think the segment 3, we can do a nice conversation of just marketing, because I have a couple of ideas of just tips to focus on.
And I lived through some of that, and on the Belgard side of things, and we took on ancillary products, and then we started selling some of the the consumables, as far as treatment and things like that. And I lived that. It was exponential, the amount of service issues when you start getting into those consumable type items, but it can be very profitable.
It's a great business case to try to put it on the whiteboard and go, what are the benefits and what are the pitfalls. It's very similar to Sam's and Costco, because all of us who shop at either one of those places know, if I don't like it, all I got to do, take it back. Right. I don't have to explain anything. So the grill's going to be under that umbrella. Okay. So is that something that we're prepared to handle if people do that?
Right. So before we go to the break, tell people today, if they want to learn a little bit more, want to find out about Gather Grills, where can they find them? Where do they go, whether it's the website or otherwise?
So, Greg, after a week or so, I figure you guys are going to get them out on the yard out there so they can see them at a Braves game. No,
just like that. I don't even want to tell you. I don't want to tell you what that costs. I'm going to tell you what the Braves would charge for that one.
So the simplest answer is gathergrills.com is the website, and then all the social stuff is Gather Grills. So if you want to see more of how normal people are using it and a lot of just unpolished stuff, go to the Facebook and Instagram. If you want to see the more polished pricing and all that stuff, go to the website.
Okay, so gathergrills with an S.com.
With an S. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, just make sure you don't want to show up in some Ukrainian website or something that.
Hey, you might need a fourth wife. You never know. You never know
with my social life.
You never know. This guy threw his back out, a hernia, doing some dirty deeds. So you never know with this guy. Throws his back out doing some.
If I had only been around a grill that afternoon, I might have been in a better spot. But
I'm more curious to listen to the podcast
now. Well, with that, we're going to go to break. We'll come back and we're going to get into some marketing plans for Gather Grills. You're listening to the Marketing MadMen on Extra 106.3. We'll be right back.